There, in a forgotten corner of the map, lay an old farm. One of those places that seems to have stepped straight out of a memory or an old dust-covered book. It was ringed by gentle hills, as if the earth itself, tired of bending, had finally decided to rest. Towering trees kept watch over the fields, casting long, fragrant shadows in the breeze, and a hush, almost sacred, laughed across the air, a stillness only found far from the rush. The hush of cicadas at dusk, leaves dancing across the soil, roosters calling with sleepy ease at dawn. At the heart of that serene land lived a man, a weathered farmer in his worn hat and peaceful soul. He was as humble as the bread he kneaded, by hand. His hands, rough and deep with calluses, were maps of years spent wielding a hoe, enduring the heat, and living through time itself. His skin, weather-beaten by countless suns, showed gentle golden tones and old scars. And his eyes, oh, his eyes. They held a quiet wisdom, like someone who has witnessed much in life and learned to wait without rushing. His voice was soft, almost prayer-like, like a hidden stream whispering between stones, flowing slowly without fanfare. A man of few words but unwavering gestures. He could hear birds singing, sense the coming weather in the wind, and find meaning in the simple birth of a new day. Among the few creatures left in his care, one stood apart, a donkey, old as well. So old, in fact, that the fur twisting around, its eyes had gone gray, just like its master's beard. Its steps were deliberate, almost ceremonial, as if the animal had nothing left to prove. Its deep, dark eyes carried an ancient sweetness born of years of quiet loyalty. But to the old farmer, this wasn't just an animal. He was a friend, a silent companion through frosty mornings and blazing afternoons. Over the years, maybe decades, the donkey had hauled sacks of corn across clay paths, fetched water from the creek in its rickety wooden cart, and helped plow the fields with a patient strength that never complained. Even now, when he could no longer pull a cart or climb hills, the farmer kept him at his side. He fed him with care, brushed his coat tenderly, and spoke to him as one would talk to an old brother. Because between them ran an invisible bond, built on time, work, and shared silence. On that farm, forgotten by the world and where time took slow, barefoot steps, the donkey was a living part of its history. More than an old animal, he was memory and gratitude in the shape of long ears and slow footsteps. And it was there, in that piece of land tucked between earth and sky, that an extraordinary story began to unfold. A tale no one imagined, no one expected, a story of collapse but also of rising, of pain and of strength. A story that would be told again and again, but that would come later. It was an ordinary morning. The sun rose lazily behind the hills, casting golden threads across the dew-damp grass. The land still breathed the freshness of night, and the roosters, punctual as always, announced the beginning of yet another day on the sleepy farm. The old farmer woke early, just as he always did. He slipped on his boots, adjusted his worn-out hat, and stepped outside with steady feet, guided by a routine shaped by time with quiet precision. He called for the donkey, like he did every morning. A soft whistle, almost affectionate. But he heard no slow footsteps, no creak of the old fence that usually signaled the approach of his companion. Only silence, a silence different from the one that usually reigned there. This one was heavy, unfamiliar, like something had gone wrong. Strange, he murmured, furrowing his brow beneath the straw hat. He walked across the yard, looked between the trees, past the stable, the old chicken coop, but nothing. The donkey was nowhere to be found, until, as he walked past the old well, long forgotten, at the far end of the property a sound broke the air, a groan, a muffled cry, almost like a weeping held back. The farmer stopped. His heart, so used to the gentle rhythm of his days, leapt in his chest. He stepped closer, slowly, as one who senses pain before he sees it. The well was still there, overgrown with weeds, its ancient stones carpeted with moss. It was deep, abandoned for years, hole in the earth that everyone had forgotten, everyone but fate. And down there in that narrow, dark pit was the donkey, fallen, injured, breathing with difficulty, trying, failing, to get up on trembling legs. Their eyes met, the donkey's and the farmer's, and in that moment time seemed to stop. Because what lay there was not just a trapped animal, it was a friend in distress, a piece of the past, a fragment of memory, a whole life's worth of love looking up and silently pleading for help. The old man knelt at the edge of the well, called the donkey by name as he had done forever. His voice cracked, his hands trembled. He measured the depth, considered the risks, thought through every possibility. But it was an old well, very deep, and the donkey, already too old. There was no rope that could lift him without danger, no tool that could fix this easily. The farmer sat down at the well's edge and buried his face in his hands. He felt the weight of helplessness, of age, of life itself. He thought of what to do. He thought of all the things that Donkey had done for him, how he had always been there day after day, son after son. And so he sat there, in silence, listening to the sounds of the donkey below, and the sound of his own heart breaking. That day, the silence of the countryside screamed. It screamed with the fear of loss, the pain of uncertainty, the shadow of an ending. But it was only the beginning of something far greater. Something no one saw coming, something that would transform that farm forever. The sun had already climbed high in the sky when the old farmer finally rose from the edge of the well. His knees ached, his eyes were red, but there was no more time to wait. He had to do something. He went to the house, grabbed the old rotary phone, and called 2 nearby neighbors, trusted folks. People who, like him, knew the value of an animal and the pain of seeing it suffer. Before long, they arrived. Simple men, their hands worn from hoes, boots scuffed, eyes serious. They approached the well cautiously, looked down, saw the donkey, lying there, groaning, and understood. No ropes, no crane, no tractor that could fit through the narrow trails of the farm. The well was too deep, the donkey heavy, old, and the minutes merciless. One of the neighbors was the first to say aloud, what the farmer feared to hear, "I think there's no way out." Silence. It's sad, but maybe the best thing to do is cover it up. The old man's eyes widened. Cover it up? What do you mean, bury him alive? That's not what we want, friend. But the donkey won't survive down there. He's suffering, and there's no way to get him out. It could take days, and he'll die anyway. Just suffering more. Maybe it's better to let him rest in peace. Those words hit the farmer's heart like stones. Bury his old friend? After so many years together, after all the walks, the scorching sun and gentle rains, the cold nights when the donkey brayed just to remind he was still there, he stepped away, went to a tree, stood there, still, his hat shading his eyes, silence cloaking his soul. He thought about the donkey, the years, the pain. Thought maybe it really was time, that perhaps rest was indeed the only way. And then, in a voice softer than the wind, he said, "If he's to rest, let it be with dignity. We'll do this together." And so they did. With shovels and hoes, they began to throw dirt into the well, one shovel at a time. Silence, then another, and another. The earth fell down below, raising dust, slowly covering the old donkey. The farmer couldn't look. Every sound of the shovel striking the earth was like a dagger to his chest. But he stayed there, steady, out of respect, out of love, out of farewell. But then, something happened. Suddenly they heard a different sound, a muffled noise but alive, a bray. Weak but clear. "Wait," one neighbor said. Shovel paused mid-air. "Did you hear that?" They all stopped and listened again. Another sound, stronger. It was the donkey. But the sound wasn't one of pain. It was of movement, of effort, of life. The men looked at each other, confused. They returned to the edge of the well and looked carefully, and what they saw made their eyes widen in amazement. The donkey was standing, covered in dirt, yes, tired, yes, but standing. And more than that, he was climbing. With every shovel of dirt they threw down, the donkey did the unthinkable. He shook the dirt off his body and stepped up on it. The donkey was standing, there in that dark and narrow bottom where everyone had already given him up for lost. He showed signs of life. Not just life, but strength. Hope. The old farmer approached the edge of the well with a racing heart. His watery eyes barely made out the sight clearly, but what he saw down below made him take a step back and then lean heavily on the wooden rim. "He's climbing up?" "Yes." With every shovel of dirt thrown down, the donkey shook the dust off his back, planted his hooves firmly, and climbed a little higher. It was as if each scoop of dirt meant to bury him was turning into steps for his escape. The shovels that once carried mourning now carried hope. "Keep going," the farmer said, his voice thick with emotion. "But carefully, more carefully now." And the men, once bowed by sorrow, now resumed digging with eyes brightened. With each new layer of dirt, they looked down and hoped the miracle would continue. And it did. The donkey, tired, gasped for breath. His eyes were half closed. Dust covered him almost completely, but his soul seemed awake. No one would ever know for sure what passed through his mind down in that hole. Maybe fear, pain, abandonment. But at some point, perhaps hearing the shovels or the familiar sound of the farmer's voice, something inside him decided to fight. And so, shovel by shovel, he refused to give up. The earth that was a threat became a foundation. The weight, pulling him down, now pushed him up. Hours passed. The sun sank, painting the sky orange and copper, as if time itself was reverent before that scene. And then finally, the donkey's head appeared above the rim. His eyes met the farmer's, and there, in that eternal moment, no words were spoken. Only the silence of the field and the sound of heavy breathing from an old friend returning from the depths of the earth. The farmer knelt, opened his arms, and the donkey, trembling, climbed the last step of earth and jumped out. It was a silent embrace. Man and animal, united not only by time but now by something even deeper, the miracle of perseverance. The neighbors clapped. Even the wind seemed to pass more gently through the trees. A bird sang. The old donkey was saved, and with him, something was reborn in the farmer's heart too. The certainty that not all is lost as long as there is a breath of courage in the chest. That night the farm felt different. The silence was the same, the trees still stood tall, and the gentle hills still held the secrets of time. But something had changed. An invisible light seemed to rest upon that patch of land. A new kind of peace, as if nature itself had paused to listen to the story of that old donkey who refused to be buried. The farmer, sitting on the porch, gazed at the starry sky with eyes wetter than usual. The donkey slept nearby, lying on a nest of soft straw. He breathed peacefully, as one who finally rested, not just from the day but from the battle for life. And the old man, with his hat resting on his chest, whispered to himself, "Sometimes, my friend, life throws dirt on us. But if we shake it off and climb up, it becomes a ladder." He stayed there in silence, remembering the early years on the farm, when he bought the donkey young, strong, stubborn. He remembered the steep climbs, the sunny days, the rainy days, how that animal stayed by his side even when everyone else left. "You taught me today," he said softly, almost like a prayer. "You taught me that those who don't give up, rise." The next morning, the story was already spreading around. Neighbors repeated it with awe. "Did you hear? The old man's donkey didn't die. He was buried and climbed out of the well on his own." And the children, the grandchildren, the village boys came to the gate just to see the hero donkey. Some brought carrots, others only curious and enchanted looks. And the donkey? He stayed the same, walking slowly with steady steps, ears alert. But now, he carried something different in his eyes. The glow of someone who came back from the darkness. In time, the well was fenced off. Not out of fear, but as a symbol. A reminder for everyone who passed by. A reminder that even the hardest days can hide miracles in disguise. That life can bury us. Yes. But if we choose not to give up, every handful of dirt can become the ground of our victory. And so, on the old farm, among the gentle hills and the winds that knew secrets, was forever kept the story of the buried donkey, who saved himself, not just by luck, but by courage, by faith, and by not letting the weight of the world stop him from fighting.